Alright, today we're going to be talking about Chapter 9.3, which is making inferences from data. We're going to see how we can interpret statistics to be useful in our day-to-day life. So we're going to start off with a quote by Rita Mae Brown. "The statistics on sanity are that 1 out of every 4 Americans is suffering from some form of mental illness. Think of your 3 best friends. If they're okay, then it's you." So here we can see how statistics can be useful in our lives to see if we're insane or not. Another way statistics are useful are in voting. If we take poll numbers from the population, we can predict early on to see who's going to win in an election. Similarly, we can test drugs by using a sample group to see if drugs such as Honk Stomp can stop your nose from running by taking a sample group of 200 people and giving 100 of them the drug, 100 of them a placebo, and finding out the results. If, say, 60% who took the drug Honk Stop stopped having runny nose, and only 30% of the sugar pill, or the placebo drug, we can make an inference that the drug is working. And to what extent. Similarly, we can test blood, take a sample of our blood, and test to see how much cholesterol we have in our system. And also, we can check and see the average height of Americans. We can take a sample group size and not have to measure everyone in the country. And when we're determining the sample size, we want to look at 3 things that are very important: the mean, the shape, and the spread. So the mean is just a fancy word for the average. The shape is average shape of the population, or whatever, that we're going to be taking. And then the spread is how well spread out it is. And then it can be used for historical documents, like the Federalist Papers. We can decide who wrote them because they were all submitted anonymously to papers to be published. We do know most of the authors, but for about 18 of the 85 of them, we don't know for sure. We can look at statistical evidence to see the word usage amount, and that will help us determine if the essays that were unidentified were written by Hamilton or if they were written by Madison. Likewise, if we dropped our deck of cards onto the ground and we're trying to figure out if we have a complete deck, we could pick them up one by one and then put them back down and determine the amount of cards that we have by the amount that we pick up. Similarly, with the in a legal case, if somebody is in trouble with the law, we need to provide evidence, and enough evidence to show that they did it. Otherwise, they are proven innocent. And also, if we take a coin and we spin it, about 50% of the time it'll land on heads, and about 50% of the time it'll land on tails. And the more we spin it, the more accurate our actual evidence will become. So if we spun it around twice, and both of them were heads, then it would be 100% heads, and that's not very accurate. But if we spun it around 100 times, and then 60 times it landed on heads, it'd be a little bit more accurate. And if we spun it around 1,000 times, and about 503 of those times it landed on heads, we're getting closer and closer each time to what it should be. And so why is all this important? Well, let's look at, for instance, blood samples. When we take out a blood sample, the nurse doesn't have to go through and do a gruesome process where they remove all the blood from our body, but rather they just need to take a large enough sample to determine how much cholesterol we have, because that sample, our blood's pretty evenly distributed, so they can extrapolate from that small amount how much of our overall blood has how much cholesterol is in it. So statistical analysis is out there saving lives, so we don't all have to get our blood taken out of our bodies. And we can look at the height problem. The best way to determine the average height of Americans is to select a bunch of people as randomly as possible. And if we keep doing this, we will get pretty accurate numbers by the end of it. For our question about average height, we took 100 people 10 different times and check out the average height. And so the average height has been what's generally accepted as the average height of Americans is 68.68 inches. In this example, the data that they took, the highest average was 69.11, and the lowest average was 66.37. And we can see that the difference for each of these is only, it's a matter of inches. So we find that taking samples of 100 people, since there weren't an undue amount of extremes in each group, we got pretty accurate numbers each time. And likewise for voting, the better sample size, the better, or the larger the sample size, the better in all of these things, but especially for voting. In California, when they had elections for governor, a polling company decided that they were 99% sure that Arnold Schwarzenegger would get 43% of the vote with a 3% margin of error. So that means he was either going to get 40% of the vote or 46% of the vote, according to this polling company. And the way they came about that is by determining a good mean, a good shape, and a good spread for their sample size. And so, according to the numbers, Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't going to get over 50%. I mean, at the end of the day, the sampling company was strong, but their data was useful because it has shown the Arnold Schwarzenegger campaign that they needed to work harder to get the vote. And so political campaigns are always using polls to determine what they do and where they'll go. And at the end of the day, the more testing we do, the better we get. It's like with our example of the penny, the more times we spun it, the better our results, and that we can use for all sorts of different things. And so as we continue to analyze the different statistics that we have, the more we can use them in our lives, and the better our quality of life will get.